Good evening, UK Crime Book Club. You can tell by my giddy face. You all know what a massive fan of Kelly Taylor I am. So I've managed to persuade her to come and join us for an hour. So hi, Kelly. Show off your latest book cover, or all of them if you want. Say hello.
Thanks, Sam. Well,
10.
some of them you can see behind me, but here's a close-up. This is the new one in the supermarkets now for a very generous £5, £6 or £7.
They are, yeah.
Do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, go for it. I was just going to ask.
All right. So her last holiday is kind of a mystery, little bit psych thriller, quite a lot mystery, and it's about three women. It's told from the perspectives of three women, and it's about Jenna, who goes on a wellness retreat 2 years earlier because she finds out some devastating news, and she wants somebody to help her come to terms with it. So she goes on this wellness retreat, but it all goes tragically wrong. And there's a sweat lodge experience. 2 people die, and Jenna goes missing on a cliff edge, leaving behind just her flip-flops. And the police rule, the Gozo police rule that it was suicide. Tom Wade, who is the self-help guru, gets sent to prison for 2 years for negligent manslaughter. There isn't actually such a sentence in the UK, but this did happen in the States when a similar crime happened. So I used the same sentence as he got. Anyway, he comes out after 2 years.
I didn't realise the sentence that he got was real, but we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it was that bit of it was based on a true story. And then when he comes out 2 years later, he doesn't want to do any more self-help retreats. He's a broken man, basically. But his wife, Kate, is very domineering and very controlling. And she basically forces his arm. And then Fran is also forced into joining a retreat. She's Jenna's sister. Her mum is a massive bully. And while Fran has accepted that Jenna killed herself, the mum is she doesn't believe it. She thinks there's another explanation for Jenna going missing. So she basically bullies Fran into going on Tom and Kate's new retreat. So you've got Fran's perspective now, Kate's perspective now, and then you've got Jenna's 2 years earlier.
And it's really gripping. So Soul Shrink is based on a real event. Was the Sweat Lodge part of the real events that happened?
Yeah, before I started writing, I did as much research as I could into self-help gurus and these kinds of retreats, these kind of wellness retreats, because it's largely unregulated. Anybody can set themselves up as a healer or a wellness expert or whatever. And I mean, you just have to look at Gwyneth Paltrow and her Goop site telling people to put stuff in them with no scientific explanation.
And it's not even hers, is it, either, which is quite shocking.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a team of people. Anyway, it's not about Gwyneth Paltrow. It's about so it's inspired by this self-help guru called James Arthur Ray, who's an American man, and he led a self-help retreat, and this sweat lodge experience is basically based on like a sort of Native American type becoming one with nature, like looking inside yourself, and like a rebirth type experience. You go into this sort of tent covered with in modern day, like a sort of tarpaulin, and then there are hot coals in the middle, and you sit around either naked or, in the case of in the book, they're in their underwear, and you basically just sweat it out with nothing to drink, no fresh air, for hours and hours and hours, and there's chanting and there's drums beating. And this is what happened on James Arthur Ray's real retreat, and 3 people died. They died of dehydration. They had heart attacks. I mean, it was awful. And I just thought, oh my God, that's terrible. But then I thought I could use that in a book. and if I make it a crime book, then it gets even more interesting.
And it does. It definitely does. I can't. I live in Manchester and it's freezing here, and I quite like that. So the thought of any kind of enforced sweating, no,
Yeah. I can
absolutely
do
not.
about 20 minutes in the sauna tops, and then I'm desperate to get out and get a cold shower and get some water.
I
Yeah.
think I'd walk in and walk back out. I'm just not good at any form of warmth at all. So we've got Caroline's already said hello to us both.
Hello, Caroline.
Now I know this, but Kaz wants to know, what does CL stand for?
CL is Callie Louise. Before I turned to crime, my first crime book was out in 2014. I wrote 2 romantic comedies. The first one was a supernatural romantic comedy, which was published by Orion, and I was Callie Taylor then. But then after that contract ended and I got the idea for my first psych thriller, The Accident, my agent actually put the book out as Cal Taylor, because we thought we won't say if it's male or it's female, so it'll just go out as Cal. And for a while, everything was all, oh, Cal this, Cal that, which is weird because nobody ever calls me Cal. And then my publisher said, how would you feel about being CL instead of Cal? And I was like, yeah, all right then. Worked okay for SJ Watson. So
I just learned something new because I didn't know you'd gone out as Cal before CL.
Oh yeah. That was my idea.
It's a good name as well.
I didn't think women in crime were taken as seriously as men in crime. So I thought it was a good idea to be a bit more ambiguous. Whereas now in the psych thriller market, it's, predominantly women. I think that, there's lots of really good men who write psych thrillers as well, but a lot of female crime authors write.
We've got Steve Munoz saying hello, everyone. He's over in California.
Oh, hello, Steve. This is my first book in 5 years to be published in the States. It should be in Barnes and Noble and Walmart. I've never been in a Walmart, but having watched loads of films, I really want to go in a Walmart and a Target. It's not a Target though.
Go to California and you can sign Steve's for him.
Yeah, I'll come and visit specially.
We've got a message here that says, hey again, Sam, Stalker1 here. I'm assuming that's Donna Morfitt. Hi, Donna. Kelsey's saying that I'm a huge CL Taylor fan, but you know that because I write reviews and tell everybody how much I love the books. And I'm still a little bit tongue-tied. I know I've interviewed you once before, but it was a panel, there were 4 of us. So it's been a while. Steve said he's just looking forward to her last holiday. He just got it, so he must have been in Barnes and Noble, and somebody's saying they love Walmart and Target.
It's not just me then.
Not just you. I am going to see if I can see on my phone who the rest of the comments are from, but got no, I don't know where Steve got it from.
Don't want to go to a Walmart, Steve says. Maybe Target. Oh, is Walmart a bit down market then, Steve? Is that where my book's living? I'll push everybody towards Barnes and Noble.
Mel, I can't say Mel's last name. Owolabe, I think, is the correct pronunciation.
Oh, yeah.
Loves Walmart and Target. And she wants to know, do you use libraries for your research? I think she tried to ask that on... we'll talk about your launch as well. You had an excellent launch party, but you had so many questions. It was just scrolling and you didn't have a prior of getting through them all. So Mel wants to know about libraries and research.
I don't anymore, actually.
It would be difficult to do at the moment anyway, wouldn't it? We're just really getting back there.
Yeah. No, back in the day, pre-internet, maybe then, but I wasn't writing then. I've been writing since I've had a home computer, really. So I was able to look stuff up on the internet. Although now it's so much easier to get hold of experts in the field. That was always a massive issue. Even when I wrote The Accident back in 2012, I'd need, a police expert, and I didn't know anyone. I needed a lawyer. I had a friend who was a lawyer, who is a lawyer. But now you can just go on Twitter and just go, does anybody know forensic anthropologist, or whatever it is, and you can find someone. So research is so much easier now, and obviously you've got Google Maps and everything. So while we were writing during lockdown, I mean, we're still fairly locked down. I'd love to set the new book in a foreign country potentially, but when I was coming up with ideas, I thought, I'd better set it in the UK, because I'm not going to be able to go anywhere to research it, which I did with Her Last Holiday. I went to Gozo, which is an island off Malta, 31st of December 2019, and stayed for 4 nights, I think. I went with a friend.
So just in time.
That was that was very lucky that I squeezed that in when I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my last adventure abroad. Okay.
So you've done 10. So in crime.
Including young adult, yeah, including young adult.
Yeah. So firstly, are you working on any more young adults? You've just done 2, haven't you? The Treatment and the Island. Yeah,
that's right. I have done 2 young adult books, and I absolutely loved writing them. I don't know if you can see. You see any? I haven't got them stood up, but
I've got the wrong cover for the Island, but I have got the Treatment. But when I touch my books, they fall off. I'm not touching them.
Leave them alone.
I made sure Her Last Holiday was separate, and the others are kind of wedged. So I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I love writing them, and they're relatively short compared to my adult books. So like Her Last Holiday is 100,000 words, whereas The Island was 70,000. So they're quicker to write, and lots of fun, pretending to be 16, 17 again. But the issue is they take up a lot of time. Even though they are quicker to write, I still have to edit them and line edit them and copy edit them and read the proofs, and then I have to do publicity for them, and it's hard enough writing one 100,000 word book a year, but to write 2 and to do 2 lots of edits and promotion and everything else is exhausting. And I know there's lots of authors who do that all the time. There's lots of bookouture, in particular, authors who maybe write 3 or 4 books a year. I don't know how they do that and they're still standing. I mean, I've got a 9-year-old son, so I'm doing the school run and looking after him, and I can't really just go head down and just write. I've got a dog as well, and that needs walking for an hour a day. So and also very sadly the young adult market in the UK isn't what it is. When Hunger Games came out and Twilight, they were selling hundreds of thousands of copies because a lot of adults were buying them and there was a lot of buzz. But your average young adult author is going to be lucky to sell maybe 2,000 to 5,000 copies.
Wow.
And, that's not enough to live off.
No.
So more and more young adult authors are actually turning to writing for adults because it's easier to make a living writing for adults because the sales are there. I wrote those books because I had stories burning away inside of me that I really wanted to tell. And I'm so glad that I did tell them. And it's been so lovely to get feedback from actual teenagers who've read them and loved them. And I kind of feel guilty that, if there are any teenagers waiting for more young adult books from me, I'll have to say, wait a few years until you're 18 and then you can read the adult ones.
Yes.
That's it for now, unless there's any kind of massive sea change in the market. I'm just going to focus on the adult books.
Well, going on to all of your adult books, all of the crime adult books, you have set them all over the place. All the different things have happened. Has it got easier to write them as you've gone along? Does it ever get any easier? No. It gets harder because I did a blog post about this a while ago, psychological thriller tropes it's called, on my blog, which is under the news section of cltaylorauthor.com.
And basically, there are only so many tropes in psych thrillers. You know, you've got missing sisters, you've got unexplained death, you've got a letter from a person who should be dead. You've got twins, you've got, you know, an errant husband, or gaslighting, or all of these things. And when I actually went through them, I was like, I've done that one twice, I've done that. So it gets harder the more books I write. I'm writing book 9 now. And, you know, the first idea I came up with, I was like, this is different. Nobody's done this before. And then I realized that was because my idea was really stupid. I'd literally taken a massive imagination leap into the realms of complete implausibility. And my editor was like, no, we both know that that's not working. And I was like, okay, fine. So I've come up with something which I think is more plausible. Of course, it's, you know, it's been done before, but hopefully not in this way, and also not by me. So for me to stay interested, I need to write something that I've not tried before, or try different structure. And that's part of the issue with why it doesn't get any easier, because my early books were just written in the first person present. And in The Accident, for example, there was just Susan's point of view, and then her diary from 10 years earlier. And then in The Lie, again, it was first person present, present day, and then the past for the same character. But then as I've gone along, I've started to have books that mixed in third person present. So The Fear has first person for the main character, and then third person present for the other two. And then I think I probably got to my most ambitious with Her Last Holiday, having 2 characters, both in the third person in the present day, and 1 character in the third person in the past. So I just try and do something different. I think like most authors, but the issue is every plot comes with its own issues, and it's not like you have some kind of formula that you can just plug a new idea into and go, oh, so I'll just swap that detective for that one and that victim for that one, or where it just doesn't work like that. I've got to start from scratch with every single idea. But you know, that's
the way otherwise, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but you don't want to write a predictable book.
No. And you do not write a predictable book.
Thank you. That's nice to hear.
I really don't. I quite like that. I like that. I have to go back at the end and look to see how you did it.
Oh, good.
I really like. I'm quite hard to throw off, so I do like it when people surprise me. I know
that. I know that about my readers as well, that they're very canny and trying to stay one step ahead without cheating. But I like a puzzle. I always like trying to give myself a bit of a challenge and then overcome it.
One of my favourite characters, who isn't a main character as such, is David in Rum. In Sleep, on the island.
Yeah.
So do you have favourite characters who aren't the main character but really important to the story?
That's interesting. My favourite characters from my books, up until Her Last Holiday, were always the periphery ones. I loved writing Isaac, the cult leader in The Lie, and I fell a little bit in love with Stefan, the Swedish guy who was there, which is so weird. He was such a minor character, but I was really invested in him. And then in The Fear, I really loved Wendy. She wasn't the main character, but she was one of the supporting characters. It just amused me writing her. Her sense of humour just tickled me. And then the same with Fran. Fran has a very blunt sense of humour. Well, not sense of humour, very blunt way of interacting with people in Her Last Holiday, which a few people have told me some of the things she says makes them laugh because it's inappropriate what she says, but she is not. She's that kind of person where stuff just comes out of her mouth and then people react like, you know, with horror, but for the reader it's funny. And I really enjoyed doing that. And then
And it
I
makes you
loved,
trust her straight away as well. With
good,
Ron, that really makes you trust her. It makes you relax because she's not trying to cover anything. She's not trying to hide who she is. She's just being herself.
yeah, exactly. I think she softens a little bit towards the end, but that's her journey through the book, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got an awful lot of things going on down the side here. Wow, so many things.
Nice comment from Daniel. Did you set out to make her last holiday so funny? I thought Fran was hilarious. That totally backs up what I just said, which is lovely.
Me and Daniel have got a very, very similar taste in authors as well. I find that we comment on a lot of the same things in the book club. Steve wants to know, any writers you cite as inspiring your writing?
I'm inspired by lots of authors. Probably my
It's hard,
biggest,
isn't it? Because you read as many authors as I do, even while you're writing everything else, you've constantly got a book on the go, and you get sent so many different arcs. And you must have so many friends now who are authors. I bet you don't know where to start.
If I tip that back along the top row there, that is only one shelf of proofs. The other ones are on a bookshelf just outside my office. I can't read like I used to. I think because I am so aware of how to make a book work, you know, all the sort of tips and tricks and red herrings and whatever, a lot of books I find quite frustrating because I'm like, I would have done this differently, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but there are some authors who wow me with every book. So I'm a massive fan of Belinda Bauer. She does the kind of humor, tongue-in-cheek, sort of dark humor thing in her books, and there's a little bit of police procedural, but not loads. It's a rare police procedural book that grips me. Actually, I love watching, you know, Line of Duty and Unforgotten and all of those shows on TV. It has to be a special book. I loved recently Lie Beside Me by Githa Lodge, which was half psych thriller, half police procedural. And what else have I loved recently? There's a new book coming out called 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard, which is set over lockdown. But it's not all about all of the nasty bit of lockdown. It's kind of used as a device. Two people meet at the beginning of lockdown, start dating, and they end up sort of like moving in together for the length of lockdown. And then there's a dead body. I absolutely flew through it. I have a terrible concentration span when it comes to books sometimes. So if I can read a book in 2 days and I don't want to watch telly and I don't want to go on my phone, that to me is the sign of a really good book. Rosamund Lupton as well. What's it called? 3 hours? Yeah, 3 hours. That's about a school siege. And I thought I wouldn't like it, that, you know, because I've got a 9-year-old son, that it would be too terrifying. But actually it was so well done, and it wasn't salacious or overly violent for the sake of being violent. I think it was done quite sensitively, but God, it was tense. So yeah, my inspiration are, you know, authors whose books I race through, and as well as, you know, Maggie O'Farrell, Margaret Atwood. I was a big dystopian fan as a teenager, so I love George Orwell, Aldous Huxley. But yeah, I'm always waiting to be blown away by a book. Will Dean's.
I do love it when that happens.
That was good as well. Will Dean's Last Thing to Burn. That was brilliant. I read that in 2 days.
I've got that to read and I've not got to it yet.
Read it. You'll get through it so quickly, I promise you.
It's having the time.
I know that feeling.
I have a reading list for our interviews and it's very rare I get to deviate from it, but luckily it's fantastic, so it's really good.
Good.
You've said in the past about starting from a what if idea when you're, you know, thinking ahead to what you're going to write. Does that still work for you? Is that still how you start now?
Yeah, pretty much. there's only ever been one book where I started with a character's voice, and that was The Accident. And I was in a queue in a supermarket, 7 months pregnant, and I was thinking about a story about keeping a secret, and the main character told me pretty much the first 3 or 4 lines of the book, which was brilliant. But maybe it was just a thing to do with being pregnant, because it's never happened since. The rest of the time I tend to start with what if, what if a woman went on a wellness retreat and disappeared, or what if a woman was groomed by a man 30 years earlier and then she sees him trying to groom another child, that sort of thing. So I'll start with that, and then I try and work out the characters and what it is that they want. So that was quite straightforward for Her Last Holiday. Fran wants to discover what happened to her sister. And then I start to flesh the characters out, really. I start to think, what's their flaw? What is it that they fear? So Fran fears hugs. And obviously, when you go on a retreat, everybody's very huggy. And I can relate to that, having been on a retreat by mistake myself. One of the exercises that we had to do was walk around in a stone circle and hug everybody who came in our path and give them a compliment. It was the most excruciating thing I've ever done.
Excruciating is the word that came to mind then when you started saying that.
Yeah, awful.
That doesn't sound like fun research, I've got to say.
Luckily, it was an incidental thing that happened in my life. I thought I was going on a writing retreat, and I was, but there weren't enough people on the writing retreat. So I had to join the wellness retreat. But, it all makes for good material. So,
well, yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. That's a really good way of looking at it. Who, from characters from other people, who are you a fan of, their characters? Do you have some favourite characters that you just think they were just brilliant?
Characters.
Could be from a film or a book, or...
I'm trying to think. Well, Tony Soprano. You don't get much better a character than that. Very nuanced as well, not just a sort of thug mafia boss. My mind's gone blank now. You see, I'm not really much of a series reader. I know the thing that draws people to series is a character that they stay invested in. They want to find out what happens to them. Because I don't really read much police procedural, I'm not that invested in any of the characters. I'll be invested in a character while I'm reading a standalone, but at the end, when it ends, that's it.
You move on.
I'll move on. So the only one who's really stuck in my mind in recent years is Eleanor Oliphant, because she felt so real and jumped off the page. Obviously, that's not crime. Something will come to me after I finish this interview.
I'm sure it will. Yeah.
Why didn't I mention?
I think I was thinking of Gone Girl.
Oh, God, yes. Amy, yes. She is quite the character. Actually, one I would have loved to have written is Villanelle in Killing Eve.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
How good is Jodie Comer? She's fantastic.
She is so good, yeah.
Yeah, that's... she'd be really fun to just have a few hours with. Not going on the I won't spoil it for anyone who's not seen it, but yeah, anyone who hasn't seen it needs to go and watch that. Oh my word!
I wasn't sure at the beginning because I thought I like my dramas quite serious, and it all seemed a bit playful, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure this is for me. If I don't like musicals for that reason, because it doesn't feel like they're taking the story seriously because they're singing it. So when there's humour in a drama, I'm like, really? How can I be scared or tense if, there's these little quips? But then I was sucked in just like everybody else. So,
how much planning do your own relationships between characters take? Because you've written every kind of relationship there is to write. So you've got siblings, you've got friends, you've got strangers, literal strangers.
Yeah.
You've got mother in Her Last Holiday, mother and daughter issues, and that you've written everything. How much goes into that?
Yeah, well, again, like I said to the earlier question, it's a case of what have I not done before? And even though there have been lots of books about missing sisters, I've never written a novel about sisters or about the way that your parents treat you. And that kind of is what's at the heart of Her Last Holiday.
Yeah.
Because like Fran, I'm an eldest child. And, you know, like I'm sure everybody who's watching got some kind of tag as a kid. And mine was like the clumsy one. Callie's the clumsy one. Oh, don't let Callie use the video. Don't let Callie use the video. She'll break it. Do you know what I mean? And my sister was the good one, and my brother was the sporty one. And those tags just go through life. You know, probably right up until I hit my 30s, people go, "Watch out, Callie will break it." I'm like, you know, I'm 27 years old or however I was. But it takes a lot to shake off those tags. And if you're tagged with something negative, like, you know, the angry one or the rebellious one or the untrustworthy one or something, how are you ever going to shake off that tag in adulthood? So I wanted to take two very different sisters, Jenna, who was the good one, and Fran, who was the rebellious one, and see how that impacted their, and there's a big age gap between them as well. There's 12 years age gap.
Yeah.
So by the time Fran was off to university, her sister was, you know, 6. Is that right? 18 minus. Yeah.
Sounds about right to me.
Yeah. So, you know, so she didn't see her grow up. And that's something that I could relate to because there's a nearly 10-year age gap between me and my brother. So when I went to university at 18, he was 8. And I kind of missed all of his teenage years and stuff. And I only really got to know him for the man he is in his mid-20s when he had his first child. And it kind of matured him a little bit. And that's a lot of what happens in Her Last Holiday. It's about, you know, what happens if you've got a sibling that you don't really know very well because of age and because of the way your parents treated you differently and stuff. So, you know, people go, oh, another missing sister book, but hopefully it's a missing sister with a bit of a difference.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I wrote down before when I was planning was, are you able to switch off at the end of the day? Or are you still are they still hounding you at all hours, these characters that you write?
No, I don't think any author switches off. I'm quite good at switching off while I'm watching telly. I mean, I don't switch off from being an author because I'll often watch telly and I'll be on social media. So I'll be replying to messages and, you know, uploading images. Or over the last few weeks, I've taught myself how to edit video on my phone and add subtitles for some stuff that I put on YouTube. So I'll often do that in the evening, but that will be more sort of active kind of author work. But then as soon as I sort of leave the phone downstairs, go to bed, lie down, my head goes, you know, that scene where so and so does that, would that be better if blah blah blah? And then, you know, I will either sort of get up, write it down if it's a good idea, or I'll just say to my brain, just think about that tomorrow, you know. When I find the further I get into a story, so I'm really early on in book 9 at the moment, I'm on chapter 2 because I had to pause to do promotion for Her Last Holiday. But the further I get in, the more invested I get. I'll be thinking about it in the shower, thinking about it on a dog walk, just thinking about it all the time. And that's why when you finish a book and you deliver it to your editor, there's this very weird hollow feeling that you get, like something's missing, because you will have spent, you know, for me, between 4 and 6 months with the same people, the same characters living with you. And then they're gone and you're like, oh, yeah, it's strange. It's a strange lost feeling.
So what do you do then? Do you just have a break and wait for edits and things to start, or do you start on the next project?
I am normally absolutely exhausted by that point, so I will have a break. I do know loads of authors who'll literally the next day go, right, start the next book. I can't do that. I need to have a break because I need to let those characters ebb away a little bit. I need to have a break because I'm tired. And also, I'm not one of those authors who will have multiple ideas waiting in the wings. I need to almost get the book out, clear the decks, and then I've got sort of space in my head for a new idea to come. So I'll actually go quite a long time without writing anything, because if I'm doing edits, then I don't want to be working on another book at the same time, because the characters start to sort of clash against each other and you're jumping from one book to another. So I try and keep them really separate.
Mel wants to know, would you ever co-write with another author? If so, who would it be and why? So this might be a dream project or an actual idea.
Well, I've said in the past that I'd really like to write with Mark Edwards because I really like his books. And he said, no, I would drive you insane. I don't plot. So I think it would be very important that I work with an author who does plot. I'd love to write with Belinda Bauer. I don't know how she'd feel about that. But yeah, she's great. I don't know if she plots though. Again, I'm not sure if she plots. I don't think who is a plotter. Tammy Cohen, maybe. I don't know if she plots. I don't know. It's difficult.
It'd be exciting to have somebody who you're plotting and they just throw in a curveball because they don't plot. I think it'd drive you insane.
I'm such a control freak. I'd hate that. But what I would like to do, what I think would be quite interesting and work quite well, is if you did a kind of he said, she said type book.
Right, okay.
So like Gone Girl, where you've got his point of view and her point of view. If you were writing one character and they were writing the other character and they alternated, it doesn't matter that the two authors have different voices because the characters have different voices. So I think that could work quite well. But yeah, no one's approached me yet asking me if I want to take part. But side projects are really fun. Lots of authors will have a bit of a side project. For me, my first young adult book was my side project. And it just gives you that chance to sort of flex your muscles a bit differently. And there's no pressure because you don't have to deliver that book or whatever. So you just write it for fun, really. So yeah, maybe. What I'd love to do is work on a screenplay with someone or something. I'm not very experienced at writing screenplays. I've only been on a course to write 10-minute short films, and that was years ago. But it would be nice as a sideline, a fun thing. I think it's harder to get screenplays made than it is to get books published. So it would have to be a fun thing.
What kind of team do you have around you now that's different from when you started? So I'm presuming that when you started, you had to do a lot more of things yourself.
I still do 99% of the stuff myself.
Really?
Yeah, people are really surprised when they'll often say things on my Facebook page like, I really like this author, and I'm like, hi, because it's me. I do my own Facebook page. I reply to all the messages. Same for Twitter, same for Instagram. I don't have anybody doing anything else. It's just me. Like I was just saying to Sam before this started, I did a Facebook live launch for her last holiday. And I'm currently in the tiniest little space in my study because I've got boxes either side of me from where I've been packing up presents. And it'll be me that takes them to the post office tomorrow, unless I can wangle my partner into doing it for me. But yeah, I did finally concede to need a little bit of help with my live launch, because I did one for strangers last year, and because of the delay between me seeing the comments and